She had everything: money, designer clothes, luxury cars, until one morning she woke up and it was all gone. Forced to clean floors and ride the bus, Isabella's perfect world crashed. But what if losing everything was the only way to discover what truly matters? You won't believe who was behind it and why. Stay tuned because you are about to watch a story filled with transformation, love, humility, and wisdom. Hello, family. Welcome to Storytime Bichuli. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories. Like and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. The sun poured into the golden curtains of the Coleman Mansion, a palace-like home standing in the heart of Manhattan. Inside, Isabella Coleman, a 22-year-old beautiful young woman, lay on a king-sized bed covered in silk sheets. Her room looked like a fashion showroom. Rows of designer shoes, bags, and clothes filled every corner. As usual, Isabella wasn't happy. "Margaret," she yelled. Margaret, the family's personal assistant, rushed in. "Yes, Miss Isabella? My Gucci bag is not in the closet. I told you I need it for the lunch party today. I think it's still in the guest house. I'll get it for you right away," Margaret replied softly. "Hurry up. And get me fresh juice. This one is too warm." Isabella had everything money could buy: private schools, personal stylists, even her own security team. But she was rude, ungrateful, and believed everyone was beneath her. She barely listened to advice and never said please or thank you. Meanwhile, her father, Edward Coleman, watched from the staircase above. He stood in silence, holding a mug of black coffee. His heart was heavy. At 54, Edward was one of the richest men in New York. But he had built his fortune from nothing. He once sold newspapers on the streets as a teenager. Through sweat, smart decisions, and faith, he rose to the top. But watching his daughter now made him question his biggest success. Was he a great businessman but a failed father? Later that evening, as they sat in the lavish dining room eating steak and prawns, Isabella tossed her napkin aside. "Daddy, I need your card. There's a new Chanel bag, and I must get it before anyone else does." Edward looked at her calmly. "Do you really need another bag?" Isabella rolled her eyes. "Dad, don't start a lecture. I'm not asking for a car or a house. Just a bag." He set down his fork. "Do you even know how much a teacher earns in a month?" "I don't care," she snapped. "They chose that job. I didn't." That was the final straw for Edward. He stood up and walked away quietly. That night, he called Margaret to his study. "She's becoming worse," he said. "She treats people like they don't matter." "I've noticed too," Margaret admitted. "She insulted the new maid yesterday because her perfume was cheap." Edward sighed deeply. "Then I've made her rich, but I've left her empty. It's time I fix this." He looked Margaret in the eye and said something she never expected. "I want Isabella to believe we've lost everything. I want her to experience life without riches, without comfort, without power. I want her to learn the value of work, people, and humility." Margaret was shocked. "You mean she'll live like an ordinary person?" "Yes," Edward replied. "And I will live it with her." He paused. "This is not to punish her. It's to save her." The next morning, Isabella woke up late as usual. But something felt off. The house was silent. No maids. No breakfast. Her phone showed no service. Her platinum credit cards weren't working. She ran to the living room and found a small handwritten note on the table. "Isabella, we've lost everything. Pack your bags. We need to leave immediately. Dad." She read the note again. And again. "What, is this a prank?" she whispered. Just then, Margaret walked in with only 2 small bags in her hand. She looked nothing like her usual self. No fancy dress, no heels, just a plain shirt and jeans. "Your father is outside, waiting." Isabella stared at her in disbelief. "Wait, you're serious?" "We're leaving, Isabella. The mansion is no longer ours. The cars have been taken. There's no staff. No chef. We're starting over." Isabella's mouth fell open. "This is a joke, right? Tell me it is." but no one was laughing. As Isabella stepped outside and saw her father beside an old car with scratches on it, she realized this was not a joke. And for the first time in her life, Isabella Coleman felt fear, not of losing money, but of losing control. Her father, Edward, leaned on the hood, dressed in plain jeans and a faded polo shirt. No driver. No bodyguards. No luxury. "Get in," he said calmly. Isabella's hands trembled. "Dad, where are we going? What's happening? Why aren't we fixing this?" Edward didn't answer directly. "There's no fixing this, Isabella. We've lost everything. It's time to start over." Reluctantly, she got into the car. The seat was rough and dusty, far different from the leather comfort she was used to. There was no soft jazz music, no chilled water in the cup holders, just silence and confusion. The drive was long. She looked out the window, refusing to speak, hoping this was all just a bad dream. But when they drove far from Manhattan and deeper into the older part of Brooklyn, reality began to settle in. The car finally stopped in front of a small, old building. It was an apartment house, faded paint, narrow stairs, laundry hanging from balconies. "This is where we're staying now," Edward said as he opened the door. Isabella blinked fast. "Where what?" Edward carried one bag and started climbing the stairs. "Come on." She followed him in shock. Their new apartment was on the second floor. It was small, with only 2 bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, and a single bathroom. There was no air conditioner, no chandelier, no TV. Just a fan, a table, and 2 wooden chairs. "Where's my room?" she asked weakly. Edward pointed. "Over there. You'll have a mattress on the floor for now. No wardrobe. You'll hang your clothes on the hooks." "No wardrobe," she gasped. "No maid, no chef, no assistant," Edward added. "You'll clean your room, cook your meals, and wake yourself up." She felt like her world had fallen apart. That night, Isabella lay on a thin mattress, staring at the cracked ceiling. Her back ached already. She swatted a mosquito away and nearly cried when the lights blinked. Her fancy lamp at the mansion had cost more than this entire apartment. The next morning, Edward woke her by knocking on her door. "Get ready. You're starting work today." Isabella sat up quickly. "Work? Where?" "I've arranged a cleaning job for you at a local cafe. You'll mop floors, wipe tables, and wash dishes." "What?" she shouted. "I'm not a maid." Edward looked her straight in the eyes. "Right now, you're a young woman who needs to learn how to survive. This is life now. No shortcuts." Isabella felt like screaming, but something deep in her heart told her she had no choice. Her credit card still didn't work. Her phone had no signal. No one from her past life had called, probably because they thought she was gone. Later that morning, she dressed in plain jeans and a t-shirt. No makeup. No perfume. She tied her hair up in a simple ponytail. When she stepped outside with her father, she saw something she had never used before. A bus. They joined the line at the bus stop. People stared at her. Some smiled politely. Others looked tired and focused. When the bus came, Isabella hesitated. "You've never entered one, have you?" Edward asked. She shook her head slowly. "Then let today be your first lesson." The ride was bumpy and noisy. She held the metal bar tightly, struggling to keep her balance. No one offered her a seat, and no one cared who she was. When they reached the cafe, Edward stopped at the door. "This is where I leave you," he said. "Your shift ends at 4 p.m. Maya will guide you. She's been working here since she was 17. What if I can't do it?" Isabella asked in fear. Edward smiled gently. "You can. You just never had to." And with that, he turned and walked away. Isabella stood at the entrance of the cafe, her fingers clenched around the strap of her bag. The sign above read Sweeping Cafe, and inside, she could see people moving fast, carrying trays, wiping tables, serving coffee. The smell of baked bread filled the air, but instead of feeling excited, Isabella felt sick with nerves. Just as she took a hesitant step inside, a cheerful voice called out, "You must be Isabella." A slim young woman with a warm smile approached her. She wore a simple apron, and her hair was tied in a loose bun. I'm Maya. I'll be training you today. Isabella tried to smile. Hi. Come on. Don't be nervous, Maya said. We're all just trying to make a living. You'll be fine. Isabella looked around. No one here wore designer shoes or carried a fancy bag. Everyone was busy, sweating, and focused. She had never felt more out of place. Maya handed her a clean apron. Let's begin. The first task seemed simple: wipe tables and arrange the chairs. But it wasn't. Isabella's hands were soft and unused to such work. She spilled water, knocked over salt shakers, and almost tripped twice. Customers came and went. Some were polite. Others complained about slow service or cold coffee. Excuse me, one man shouted. Do I need to clean the table myself? I am sorry, Isabella stuttered, rushing over with a cloth. Don't just say sorry.
Do better, he snapped.
She swallowed hard, blinking back tears. In her past life, she would have called security on such a man. But now, she couldn't do anything. She wasn't the boss's daughter here. She was just a cleaner. Maya noticed her struggling. During their short break, she sat beside Isabella and handed her a bottle of water. You okay? Maya asked gently. Isabella nodded slowly. I'm not used to this. Maya chuckled. I could tell. But you're trying, and that's what matters. They talked more. Maya shared that she worked 2 jobs to support her mother and younger brother. She never went to college because the money was used for her brother's treatment. Isabella was touched. That's a lot. Yeah, Maya said. But I've learned something. Kindness and hard work will take you further than money ever will. That sentence stayed with Isabella. The rest of the day didn't get easier, but it felt different. She started putting more care into wiping tables. She smiled at customers. She picked up crumbs without being told. By the time 4 p.m. came, her feet ached, her back hurt, and her shirt was soaked with sweat. But there was a strange feeling in her chest, pride. She had finished her shift. Outside, her father was already waiting by the same old car. How was it? Edward asked as she sat down beside him. Isabella didn't speak for a while. Then she sighed and said, Hard. Really hard. But I didn't quit. Edward smiled. That's good enough for today. Back at the apartment, Isabella showered and sat by the window with a cup of tea. The noise of the street below echoed through the room. But instead of hating it, she watched people walking, laughing, selling snacks, and for the first time, she didn't feel better than them. That night, before bed, she asked her dad, How long are we going to live like this? Edward replied calmly, As long as it takes for you to find what truly matters. She nodded slowly. I think I've started to see it. The next morning, Isabella woke up before sunrise. She had barely slept, but something in her heart pushed her out of bed. She dressed quietly, tied her hair back, and cleaned the kitchen table before her father woke up. Edward walked into the room and paused in surprise. You're up early. I want to help, Isabella said softly. Can I cook breakfast? He smiled. Of course.
She tried.
The eggs were a little too salty, and the toast got slightly burned, but they both laughed and ate together. It was the first time in years they had sat in the same room without arguing. After breakfast, she took the bus alone to the cafe. This time, she didn't feel ashamed. She greeted the driver with a polite good morning and helped an elderly woman get into a seat. At work, Maya greeted her with a warm hug. Look at you, early and glowing. Isabella smiled. I'm getting the hang of it. The day passed quickly. Isabella cleaned faster, served customers more confidently, and even started chatting with regular visitors. One elderly man, Mr. Benson, came in every afternoon for coffee. He told jokes, and Isabella laughed genuinely. During her break, she noticed a young girl crying quietly outside the cafe window. She stepped out and found the girl sitting alone on the bench. Are you okay? Isabella asked, kneeling beside her. The girl sniffed. My mom is late. She said she'd come, but she's not here. Do you want to come inside and wait? Isabella offered kindly. The girl nodded. Isabella gave her a warm cookie and sat beside her. A few minutes later, a woman ran in, out of breath. "I'm so sorry," the woman cried. "Traffic was bad and I couldn't reach her." "It's okay," Isabella said, standing up. She was brave, and she loves cookies. The mother looked at Isabella with teary eyes. "Thank you so much. Not everyone would have helped." "No need to thank me," Isabella replied gently. "We all need someone sometimes." That evening, as Isabella walked home from work, she noticed things she never had before. Kids playing on the sidewalk, a man painting a fence, neighbors helping each other carry groceries. It was simple, but it was beautiful. When she got home, she sat with her father on the old couch.
"Dad," she said.
"Yes. Why didn't you raise me like this from the beginning?" Edward sighed. "After your mother died, I tried to make your life easy because I didn't want you to feel pain. I thought giving you the best things would make you happy. I didn't know I was spoiling your heart." She rested her head on his shoulder. "I think I needed this. Not just to learn, but to see, to feel what real life is." He nodded. "And that's why I brought you here." Isabella wiped her eyes. "I want to do something more, Dad. Not just work at the cafe. I want to help people like Maya. People like that little girl. I don't know how yet, but I will." Edward placed his arm around her and smiled. "You've already started, Isabella. You just don't see how much yet." As they sat quietly, the sound of city life filled the room, but it wasn't noise anymore. To Isabella, it sounded like purpose. And deep inside her heart, something powerful had taken root, a deep sense of gratitude and a desire to make a difference. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like the rich man's daughter. She felt like a human being, simple, aware, and alive. "I think I've changed," she whispered. Edward looked at her. "Yes, you have." The next morning, Edward told her not to go to work. "Why?" Isabella asked, confused. "I have a shift. You won't need it today."
"Get dressed."
"I have something to show you." Still unsure, Isabella changed into clean jeans and a shirt. She tied her hair neatly and followed her father down the stairs. Instead of taking the bus, Edward led her to a parked black car waiting at the corner. "Whose car is this?" she asked. Edward smiled slightly. "Just get in." As they drove through the city, Isabella looked outside. The roads became more familiar. Soon, she realized they were heading back into Manhattan. "Dad, are we going to our old house?" "Not exactly," he said, keeping his eyes on the road. They stopped in front of a tall, modern building with shining glass walls. A security guard opened the door and greeted Edward with a salute. Isabella's jaw dropped. "Wait, he knows you?" Inside the elevator, her heart raced. When the doors opened, she stepped out onto the top floor of the building. What she saw next left her frozen. A massive office with a breathtaking view. Staff members walking around in suits. A giant sign on the wall read, "Coleman Enterprises." Her father walked past her and opened the glass doors to the main boardroom. He stepped in like he owned the place. Because he did. "Dad," she whispered, eyes wide. "What is this?" Edward turned to her with calm eyes. "This is your real home. I never lost anything. I never gave anything away. I simply stepped back to give you a chance to grow." "You lied?" she asked, her voice shaking. "No," he said softly. "I created a lesson. One you wouldn't learn any other way." Tears filled Isabella's eyes. "I worked at a cafe. I cleaned toilets. I cried. I suffered." Edward walked toward her. "And you loved. You helped. You changed. That's what I was hoping for." "You see, Isabella, riches can buy things, but they can't buy wisdom. You had to experience life to respect it." Isabella wiped her tears slowly. "Why did you do all this?" "Because I love you," he said. "And I couldn't let you grow up proud and empty." A few minutes later, the entire boardroom stood as Edward introduced her to the team. "This," he announced, "is my daughter, Isabella Coleman. She's been through a journey, and today, she starts a new one. Not as a boss's daughter, but as a woman ready to lead, not with pride, but with heart." From that day, Isabella began working at the company, but in a very different way. She joined the social impact unit, using funds to support small businesses, sponsor scholarships, and start food programs for struggling families. She visited her old cafe and surprised Maya with a new apartment, full education sponsorship, and a job offer. She created a fund for single mothers, starting with the woman whose daughter cried outside the cafe that day. Everywhere she went, people saw a different Isabella, not spoiled, not proud, but kind and humble. Months later, during a charity event, a reporter asked her, "What changed you, Miss Coleman?" She smiled. "A lesson I didn't know I needed, from a father who loved me enough to let me struggle." That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do, share it to your friends and loved ones, like and subscribe to my channel. Also, drop your comments on what you feel about the story. Thanks for watching.